This beautiful little lake is known as Snails Lake. It is an intimate water with plenty of features, from gravel patches to lily pads, weed beds to islands, and even tight little marginal spots where the carp can seek cover. By no means is this an easy water to fish. In fact, quite the opposite. The carp here can be very wary, and with plenty of features it can be difficult to find the right spot to present a bait. However, there is something special about this lake that draws you in. With the vast amount of islands creating winding channels and plenty of specimen carp living within this water, this mystifying maze captured my attention. My first session saw me arrive at a very busy lake. Fortunately, on this particular water, with a fully booked lake, there will still be 6 swims available to choose from, giving plenty of choice and room to move. I settled on swim 2, as I hadn't seen any fish move in any of the available swims, and swim 2 gave me plenty of water in front of me to go at. I decided actually not to put any bait on top of the rods. I thought I'd leave them out there, see if I could pick up a carp if there are any in the area, as like I said, it's quite an intimate water, quite small water, so I've got an island that's only probably about 20 to 30 yards across from my bank, and my rods are just in the margin. I didn't want to go chucking in any bait and spooking any carp that were potentially in the area. Like I said, it's been about 4 hours, so I have just put in some bait now because I think that's going to be my best chance of getting a fish going into the evening, which is when I think it is going to be bite time, evening tonight and then early morning tomorrow morning. So I've gone, both my left and middle rod is boilie only approach. I've put out some Pacific tuna on both of those spots, probably about 5 or 6 pouchfuls on the catapult, and then my right hand rod I've got pellet and boilie, Pacific tuna and just some halibut pellets in on the right hand side, and hopefully that's going to get ourselves a carp at some point today. On a lake like this, it is important to keep an eye on the water to spot any signs of fish activity. With so many places a carp can be hiding around the lake, finding them is so important. After spotting a fish a bit further than my baited spot, I fired a single NS1 pop-up towards it in hope of a quick bite. Well, I've opted to go all 3 rods on the Ronnie rig, and the reason being, I've done a bit of research on this particular water, looking at catch reports on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and it seems to me that the fluoro pop-ups are the bait of choice, and at least producing a lot of the fish, the majority of the fish. So that's why I've gone for 3 Ronnie rigs. I've got them actually Northern Special pop-ups in the 12mm version. 2 of my rods are on the white and 1 on the yellow, and I have full confidence that that's going to do a bite if the fish are in the area. So let's get this one back on the rod and whack it back out. With so many features to cast a rig to on this particular lake, I always ensure I keep one of my rods close into the margin. Margin spots have done me so many bites over the years, especially when the light begins to fade and the carp come in close. With the sun high in the sky and the pressure increasing throughout the afternoon, it passed rather uneventfully. We're just going into the evening now, and it's been absolutely roasting this afternoon. Haven't seen much sign of fish activity, but it is starting to cool down now. The sun's just gone behind the trees and slowly setting over the horizon, and I think now it's going to start to come alive. I think just after dark is probably going to be bite time, and maybe early morning. I'm not too sure on this lake. I know a few fish do come out overnight, so I'm hopeful that we're definitely in with a good chance of getting a fish. The rods are out. I'm just going to have some dinner and get into the sleeping bag. The rest of the evening passed without much sign of fish in the area, and the rods remained motionless. I was awoken the next morning to a beautiful golden sunrise with mist rolling across the lake. Good morning to what has been a rather uneventful night. Apart from about 5 o'clock this morning, we did have an absolute melting run on the middle rod out towards the willow tree on the white northern special pop-up. But upon striking into it, I was met with very little resistance. Could just feel that there was a fish there, but whether it pulled the hook straight out of the mouth or it was just a savage liner in the fish had got it caught in one of its fins, or as it was swimming past. But yeah, so not a great productive evening. I've got about an hour now before I have to be off the lake, and that's the end of the 24 hours. But starting to build a picture. It's a really nice lake, and it's just beautiful just to be out sat next to it with the rods out. But hopefully we'll get ourselves into a digger lakes carp some point soon. Unfortunately, the first trip did result in a blank, but I was back out a week later in more favourable conditions to try and catch a Snails carp. I started off in an area of the lake known as Tyler's Bay, as the main body of the lake had a lot of pressure from other anglers. However, after not seeing any fish activity since I arrived in the swim, I decided to move to the main part of the lake after a few anglers had left. I'm currently set up in swim 6 on the lake, which is also known as Guys. When I first arrived, I did actually go into Tyler's Bay, as there was no one fishing it. There's 3 swims in there and there was no one fishing. And I had a walk around the main body of the lake, and each swim was full apart from peg 4 and 5, and I didn't really like the look of those at the time. So I decided to go in Tyler's Bay for a couple of hours and wait till someone left off the main lake. And I didn't actually see anything in Tyler's Bay, to be honest. A bit surprised considering there's a lot of pressure on this particular part of the lake, but as soon as I've arrived into the swim, I've already seen 2 fish with the tails out the water, so they're definitely feeding in front of me. Now there is quite a bit of weed again in this particular swim, with a few clear areas, but it's looking spot on for a bite. It's a little bit cooler today, and it's also forecast to rain later on this evening, going through pretty much the whole night into tomorrow morning, so you would argue that it's ideal carpy conditions. It wasn't long before the rain came in, and I took shelter in my bivvy for the rest of the afternoon. Well, it's been non-stop rain all afternoon, and I've only just managed to get the camera out to do a quick update for the evening. Conditions are looking spot on. We've got a nice southwesterly blowing into the bay that I'm fishing. Temperature's really cool and the pressure's really low at the moment, so it's ideal carping conditions. My stay is going to be a very wet one overnight. It's meant to be heavy rain all until tomorrow afternoon, and my session ends tomorrow morning, so going to be a very wet one, but hopefully conditions are spot on. The rods are out and back out on their spots for the evening, and it's looking good. The rain came in even harder that evening and was non-stop for the rest of the session. Unfortunately, the rods were quiet throughout the night and during the morning. I had one more trip planned the following week to hopefully catch one of the gems swimming in this lake. It's a new day and it's a new opportunity to try and get ourselves a Snails carp. Now, I actually arrived here about 8:30 this morning, and I decided to go around with the barrow, with the rods on the barrow, and see if I could find some fish. And I did actually spot a group of fish down by Tyre Island, I believe it's called. Definitely feeding, tails in, sort of wafting under the surface of the water, and silt kicking up. There's definitely feeding happening. Dropped in there for an hour, but unfortunately nothing materialised from that, and didn't see any signs after sort of feeding activity. So I decided to take another walk, and actually a swim called the Ski was free. A guy was just leaving, he's just done 24 hours, and he actually had one last night down in the left hand margin towards some lilies. So I decided to drop in here, had the 2 rods set up, so I flicked one straight out just into my left where that guy had the fish yesterday evening, and I've put my next rod out just out in amongst sort of the centre of the weed in front of me. The Ski is quite weedy here, so it's definitely going to take some sort of manoeuvring to try and get fish if we do get one, or even just finding some spots. I got those 2 out on some clear spots. I'm yet to know what I'm going to do with the 3rd rod. I haven't got it set up yet, but I will get that out in a moment. I'm just going to have some food, re-energise, and hopefully come up with a plan to get ourselves a carp. Well, the wait was worth it. £24 8 ounce, first fish from Snails, and what a chunk. Cracking fish, look at that. Now on the NS1, yellow pop-up. What a result. Get in. Well, I can't believe what has just happened. I was not expecting that. I just cast out my 3rd rod out towards the channel where I'd seen a few fish cruising, and that mid-20 mirror is just taking the bait within about 20 seconds of the rig landing. Just literally set it up with the bobbin and it was away. What a result. On this particular trip I was fishing with Joe, who you may recognise from previous videos. He was fishing the swim just to my left, and shortly after I slipped back the mid-20 mirror, his rod was away and he landed this beautiful mirror carp. With the sun high in the sky and it being the hottest day of the year so far, the action dried up for a few hours. As I was sat enjoying the beautiful wildlife surrounding this lake, I received a phone call from Joe, who had another mid-20 mirror sulking in the net. We found on this particular trip that setting little traps with only a handful of free offerings around the hookbait proved to be the winning tactic. This was the approach I continued to take for the rest of the afternoon, although the action did dry up as we headed into the evening. Now we've come into the evening, the pressure and the temperature has really changed dramatically to what it was this afternoon. It's been absolutely blistering, up to 28 degrees and quite a high pressure, but it's actually started to change now. It's quite a low pressure coming in, there's a breeze, just a nice cool breeze started to come in as the light's starting to fade, and the temperature has really eased off a bit, which is quite nice, and it's evident that it's turning the fish back on to feed, because I've seen a few carp coming in the area, boshing, swirling, and also some tails wafting just under the surface. So there's definitely fish in there to be had. All three rods are back out on their spots for the night. Gone two on the pop-ups on the ever faithful Ronnie rig with the two NS1 yellow fluoro pop-ups, 12mm, which done me the mid-20 earlier on today. And my left-hand rod I got into the margin, got a nice lily pads. And that's on a CC Moore Pacific Tuna wafter on a German rig. So very confident with where the spots are, and confident that if the fish are on the feed and in the area, I'm going to get a bite. So we'll just have to see what happens throughout the night. With the sun slowly setting behind the trees, it was time to enjoy the night's dinner of beef casserole and boiled potatoes. The moon was high in the sky well before the sun had set, making for another beautiful backdrop to enjoy the peace and tranquility this lake provided. Well, a pretty uneventful night in the end, and I'm actually really surprised because it was actually spot on for a bite last night, with that pressure sort of lowering and then a cooler front coming in. I was expecting the fish to be on the feed, but it hasn't really turned them on. I didn't have any sort of activity in the swim, apart from one carp jumping around 2 AM in the morning that woke me up, but apart from that, not a lot. Now the weather is meant to take a turn for the worse. We're meant to have heavy rainstorms and the possibility of a thunderstorm, so I'm going to slowly pack away the camp and hopefully miss that thunderstorm. Snails Lake is certainly a beautiful lake to fish and holds some amazing carp. The challenges it presents makes catching one even more special. Thank you very much for watching. Please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. It's very much appreciated. Until the next time, I will catch you later.